notice that you all have an inner world, and in there is some lenses and some landmines, and we'll look more into your own personal story a bit later. So how do we start addressing this then? How do we start using some skills to live freely for Jesus? So the first one is you need to pay better attention. So attention is a big problem, especially in the current way of life, because we have so many things to soothe our discomfort. So actually in the West, we're the worst of people for managing our thoughts and feelings, because there's always a phone to scroll through, there's always Netflix, there's always loads of entertainment wherever we go. And I find it fascinating increasingly to be in coffee shops, and if one person leaves the table leaving somebody on their own, there's a rare person that doesn't go straight on their phone. Like, we are increasingly losing the ability to sit with ourselves in any space, and that's a big problem. So a lot of people can't sit in silence, they can't sit with themselves, and that's the reason they can't rest and the reason they're burnt out. That's a really big problem with the constabulary for sure. So they've got so much trauma going on that when they do try and sit and settle, it's too traumatizing for them. And there's a lot of people within normal limits that feel that. I see it with people. There's a lady in our church who works in a school, and so that clearly keeps her mind suppressed all the term time. And then the holidays come, and there's just constant messaging in the leaders group. Like, what about the decor that needs to be done? I've gone out and bought loads of paint. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And I always say to Lyndon, like, she clearly can't sit with her inner world. So she's got some holidays. She can't rest. She's got to kind of do some doing. So we're going to talk a bit about the kind of mad behaviors that come from that stuff. So we need to learn to pay better attention. So let's talk about that. This picture, there's some workbooks at the back that I did years ago that are not Christian workshops. They do have the gospel right hidden at the end, which I got away with, apart from on Amazon where somebody's called me out and said I'm abusive. But because I said the gospel was true, you know, I'm sure if I'd have put I'm a fancy spiritualist who likes jumping over toadstools, everyone would have thought I was really cool and trendy. But yeah, anyway, I work a lot with young people and say to them that the opposite to paying good attention is almost like walking around with a big bag on your head. And I get some of those big old-fashioned grocery bags, and we put them on our heads and we walk around the room and see what that's like. So, and then they can notice how disconnecting that is, to be in your own head all the time with your thoughts and feelings, to not give people eye contact, to not go on your phone. But that is kind of what it's like when we're not paying good attention and when we're on autopilot. We might as well have a bag on our head. So we experience disconnect, and we also don't experience any pleasure from the things that are actually in front of us that we have potential to lose and be sad about. So this quote from 1 Corinthians, I think that's from the Message version, maybe the NIV, but it says, you're still worldly. It's talking to Christians. Corinthian church, they're a bit messy, weren't they? And Paul is saying, you're still behaving like non-Christians. And the word he uses in the NIV is, you're acting like mere humans. But the old-fashioned versions say carnal, which is almost the sense of you're like animals. You're behaving like a dog, you know, and some of you have got dogs, and dogs go towards the food, don't they? They run towards the things that are yummy, and they run away from the things that frighten them. And Paul is almost saying, that's what you're doing. When you're on autopilot, you're just behaving in quite an animalistic, zombie kind of way. You're not paying attention to the Spirit, you're behaving like you're not a Christian at all. And what do you reckon? So there's been some relatively recent research on the amount of time people spend on autopilot. So kind of when your body's here, but your mind is somewhere only we know. How much? What's your guess, percentage-wise? I've got no prizes today. For the police, I have to take a prize. But no chocolate. What do you reckon? Pardon? 90%. It's a bit lower. 75, it's a bit lower. What was that program, that quiz show where you did higher, lower? What was it? Price is Right, yeah. Some of you are too young to know what we're talking about. Anyway, it's a bit lower than 75%. Bit lower. How much? Bit lower. Bit higher. Bit lower. Bit lower. Yes, you would get the lint ball if I had brought any. Give her a lint ball. 47. So about half of our time, so bearing in mind averages, we're taking the teenager who's on their phone all the time and the Buddhist monk who claims that they're present all the time, which I don't really believe, but hey. So we're putting all of that in the pot to make an average. So about half of our time, about half of the average person's time is spent on autopilot. Who thinks they're a bit higher than that? Yeah, the honest people. Anyway, I think a lot of us are often on autopilot, running around, moving towards things that make us feel at ease, running away from things that make us feel in any way uncomfortable, avoiding. So what the problem is with that, which Paul is alluding to, is when we're on autopilot, we will take the easy path, because that's how our brains work. So you know this because if any of you have ever moved house and gone to make the tea or find the cutlery, you'll go to the place it was in your last house. Do you have that experience? Because when you've repeated something so many times, your brain can do that without thinking, on autopilot. Doesn't involve any of these top parts of your brain. That's your rational thinking brain. It's the down there parts of your brain can do those automatic patterns. So when we're on autopilot, our body, our flesh, is running the show. It will take us on those well-trodden paths that have been trodden for decades. Feel a bit of discomfort, run away. Feel a bit of discomfort, defend. All of those old worldly patterns are much easier on autopilot, and often autopilot, easy route, well-trodden path is the sinful path. Not always. Sometimes it's just the self-defeating binging on sugar or ignoring people, but sometimes it's the things we go that are actually sinful. So attacking other people, watching too much television that isn't helpful. I don't know, lots of things we do. So the devil likes it there. The devil is very invested in keeping you on autopilot. That's in his best interests. So why do we want to come to our senses? So coming to our senses, using our senses, brings us into the present. So you can't taste, hear, see the past or the future. You can only use your senses here. If you're in the past, then you're worrying, regretting. If you're in the future, you're often fretting and fearing as well. So we need to come to the present for all sorts of reasons using our senses. And the Bible uses this phrase quite a lot, and others like it. So there in 2 Timothy, then they will come to their senses and escape from the devil's trap, for they have been held captive by him to do whatever he wants them to do. And that's very comfortable and compatible with autopilot. So the secular reasons it's useful to start becoming more present, turning off autopilot, is because it's been researched to be a really good tool against rumination and that low-level restlessness and dissatisfaction. So that's why the world is preaching this, actually. It also very much settles the restless head in the same way, but it brings us off autopilot. But when the Bible talks about coming to our senses, it's not doing what the world says. So the world is very into mindfulness and meditation. You need to be a bit careful and wary in that space, because although meditation started in the Bible and it's talking about, pondering the Word of God, really thinking deeply about it, going over and over it, often meditation in the secular world isn't that, and you can find yourself into some dodgy spaces. Can I say, Freya, you'd be quite a good expert on that, wouldn't you? Kind of judging what would be good and what would be less good in that space. So my son is very into mindfulness, and what he's trying to do is to detach himself from his difficult inner world. So the secular view would be, when you look into your inner world, you will not see good things. You'll see thoughts like, I really can't stand you. You will see feelings like jealousy and anger. And so the secular view is, we need to detach from that. We need to realize that that isn't me. That's kind of just some content that isn't me. That's not the true me, because I'm good. So that's what they're trying to do. The Bible doesn't use the words come to your senses like that. It uses the words in the same way that the Bible says, be sober-minded, be alert, wake up. Come to your senses. So I really like the prodigal son. That's my favorite parable for many different reasons. But in there, I'm sure most of you will know that story, a son that wandered far away from his father, thinking that was going to sort it all out. He nicked his father's part of his money, his inheritance, wanted his father dead, runs off, has parties, does all sorts, then runs out of money at the same time as he runs out of friends, finds himself eating pig swill, which would have been very humiliating, the lowest of the low for a Jewish boy. And then the Bible says, and then he came to his senses. Now that doesn't mean he sat cross-legged in the pig swill with his meditation pose trying to detach. It means he woke up. And that's what the Bible means when it says, come to your senses. It means wake up and see what you're doing. You're on autopilot. You're on that well-trodden path. You're on your road to sin. You're in the devil's hands. Wake up, listen to the Spirit, turn around. So we must be really careful when we see that. So, but we do need to connect with our senses in order to do that, to see what we're doing and to make sure we do what's right. So I'm going to teach you a few skills to come to your senses, to pay better attention in order to serve God better. My husband likes a fancy car, so there's a picture for him. So what people don't realize is there's 2 gears in your mind. We know about gears, most people do. We know that there are different gears. So 1st gear, slow, move off the drive. 5th gear, faster, go down the M27. We know, well, what happens if you used your car only in 1st gear on the motorways? What would happen? Pardon? You'd wreck your transmission, your engine would blow up, presumably. It would burn out, okay? So what would happen if you did what I did and used 5th gear quite fast off your drive into the Indian restaurant's fence? You'd crash out. Anyway, so it's not that 1st gear is better than 5th gear. It's about using it in the right context. So we've been created with 2 gears. Thinking gear, which is where we do all the remembering and the planning and the working things out in order to function and move forward. And then sensing gear, where we're here, we're in the present, we're paying good attention to my insides and what's going on outside. Our big problem in the West is most people are in thinking gear about 80% of the time, even when they don't need to be, which is why they're restless. So some people will come to me and say, I'm an overthinker. Well, you've just practiced that habit, and you're addicted to thinking to run away often from feeling. That's a big reason why people are overthinkers. So we'll come back to that. So you have 2 gears, thinking, sensing. So right now, take a moment, sit up, think about your journey, how you're going to get home. Have a little ponder. What you're going to do. Find your car, plan it out. As you're in thinking gear, open your eyes, look around, look at the colour of the lights, spot the colours on the fancy bunting, see which one you like most. Smell, see if you can smell some BO. None, what a good church. Listen to the laughter, or whatever. You've come into sensing gear. You see that? It's as easy as that. So you've been thinking, then you've been sensing. Now you can go back to thinking. Imagine your house. Count how many windows in your house. There you go, you're back to thinking gear. So you can come into sensing gear using your body with your 5 senses. So either you're breathing, if you notice your breathing, that'll bring you back into the present, or any of your 5 senses. So that's the first thing you've got to do. Just notice which gear you're in and whether you're going in the wrong gear. So when I'm sitting, should be writing a report, and I'm staring out the window at the birds, I'm in sensing gear when I should be in thinking gear. But when I'm out for a walk with my family on Easter Monday and I'm planning this day, I'm in thinking gear when I should be in sensing gear. So we can just beginning to get a sense of that. And the brain likes habit, which is why you go back to your old cutlery door. So the more you practice, so a lot of people will come up to me after days like this and go, oh, you have no idea what my brain's like. It's like, well, I do, because it's just a standard form of brain in the main. So just like, it's like someone saying to me, oh, you don't know how my legs work. It's like, I kind of do. I might be a bit faster or a bit slower than you, but we've all got a fundamental neurology, physiology that works much the same. That's not to exclude people who are neurodiverse, but fundamentally, we have a habit system that creates skills. So every time God has created us, every time we repeat a pattern, we will get better at it. So everything you can do today, including getting dressed, one day you couldn't have done that. There was one day in life where you couldn't put your own pants on. So now you can. And even when you've got kind of dementia or something that takes away a lot of your capacity, you'll still be able to do some of those age-old skills because you'll have practiced them for so many years. So these are skills. What I'm teaching you is skills, which will mean if you've never thought or practiced them, you will be rubbish at them. And each day you do the skill, you will get better, because that's the way God has designed your brain, thankfully. The posh word for that is neuroplasticity. It isn't true that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Sometimes I work with people in their late 80s. I think that's the oldest person I've worked with individually, and people are astonished that they can learn new things despite decades of doing things in a different way. So that's the way our brains are designed, to be redeemed and change right up until our death day, when we'll be changed forever. So your body is the doorway to sensing gear, and these are a few really easy exercises. So the reason I was employed with the constabulary is they didn't want a course that took any effort or any extra time, because they have none, like a lot of us. So these are all things that you could do sitting on the toilet, boiling the kettle, climbing a ladder, whatever you do. So simple exercises. I should have said at the beginning, Jez has my presentation. I'm really happy with people to have it. It's mine. You can have it. You can print it out. I'm sure someone in the church will print it out for you. If you don't do screens, do what you like with it. So you don't have to panic that you can't get it all down. So these are just a few exercises you can use your senses. So when you walk out of the building, just notice the difference between in and out. You're coming into sensing mode. Just stop and listen. Standing in the supermarket queue, rather than going on your phone, look around you. Get eye contact. So when we use our phones, it shoots us up with adrenaline. It is a mind-altering drug, adrenaline. So every time you look at your phone, you're getting a bit of adrenaline, which does all sorts of unhelpful things to your mind, and it makes your body feel very stressed. If you look someone in the eye, that gives you oxytocin, which is the soothing drug. So just by looking someone in the eye in the supermarket, also a 6-second kiss or a 30-second hug is also very oxytocin-inducing. And when I say that in the constabulary, they always go on about, like, it has to be consensual. It's like, well, you're not going to go up in the supermarket and give someone a 6-second snog, hopefully. Certainly not church people. So anyway, if you've got someone at home that doesn't mind giving you a 30-second hug, then that will really help you. But also being out in nature, being in the outdoors, petting animals, all of those things bring up our natural soothing hormone, along with singing and worshipping God. Oh, it's almost like God knew, wasn't it? So how we worked. Anyway, anything you use your senses for will help a bit. So each time you come to your senses, remember why you're coming there. Ask yourself, what am I doing? How does that compare with what I'm supposed to be doing? Are my actions towards or away from God? Is there an opportunity here to do what I'm designed for, to look up or to look out? And am I missing some joy or blessing? I have a privilege of working with lots of people in the last stages of their life. I work in neurology, where people have either been given a horrid diagnosis, like motor neurone disease, or have terminal cancer. And people there know what's important. And they often say to me, I realize I haven't looked at my child properly for a really long time. He's grown. The shape of his jaw's changed. You know, I hadn't realized how much I loved my partner or how much I enjoy my garden, because actually I've spent the last 10 years on autopilot. So we want to wake up and appreciate the world that God has put us in. And even in the painful times, there are always things that we can give thanks for. And we're told to do that again. You know, psychologists about 2,000 years late to the table are going, if you keep a gratitude diary and write things that make you happy each day or have been a blessing, that really helps your brain. It's like, oh, I think I remember God said that some time ago. Give thanks in all things. You know, we turn our hearts to what we're grateful for. We don't do that when we're on autopilot, running away from discomfort. So this is something I teach the police, but I've made it into a Christian thing for my book. So we're now calling it a righteous stomp. So I'll show you it. So if you want to put your stuff on the floor for a minute and sit up in your chairs, looking like you're being called to attention. And just close your eyes, again, not to do anything spiritual, but just to block out other people. So we're going to do a righteous stomp. So we've done the S, we've stopped. We're just going to stop and still ourselves before God. And remember that God is God and we are not. And then just take notice of your breathing. We're not trying to relax. Just notice that you're a human being and you're breathing. And notice where you most easily experience your breathing. So for some people, it might be your chest going in and out. For other people, your stomach going in and out. Or your shoulders going up and down. Where is it easiest for you to notice your breathing? Pin your attention there. Open your mouth just a tiny bit so you don't trap your air. And just watch yourself doing 3 breaths. Imagine you've never seen yourself breathe before. So we've stopped. We've taken notice of our breath. Now look at your mind inside of yourself. Where's your mind at? Is it calm or busy with thoughts? We're not trying to shut out our thoughts. We're trying to see what's going on. Just notice and say to yourself, my mind is calm, or my mind is not calm. And if it's not calm, see if you can notice any of the thoughts that are popping up. And if you can't, that's fine too. And then just take your attention to your body. Notice what you're feeling. Are you feeling tired? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? How do you know? Where do you check for those things? And then notice any emotions. So right now, I am feeling. Finish that for me in your head. There's no right or wrong. We're all different. Just notice it. And then we're going to move. So whatever's going on inside of us, whatever the pace of our breathing, whatever's on our mind or our bodies, we can move. So shrug your shoulders, do something you can to just shift your body about a bit. Wiggle about in your chair, stamp your feet, do whatever works for you. Apparently shaking is the most good reset, but obviously don't do that at work or you'll be described as weird. And then come back. Open your eyes, come to your senses. So listen, look, taste, smell. And then the P, the secular version is partake in the world. The Christian one is present yourself as a living sacrifice. If that sounds weird, it just means use your arms and legs to serve God, to bring fruit, to do something productive for him. So, what do you make of that? Anyone willing to say what they noticed? Some people in this room will have hated that. There's always a few. Anyone willing to say anything? What did you notice? What did you notice, Lyndon? What did you notice inside of yourself?
A bit of emptiness.
Okay. Nothing new there then? Vicky? Okay. Okay. Nice. Productive for you. Anyone really hate it? Go on, admit it. Some people really hate being told to stop and will have found it very restless and hard. Anything going inside of you, Jez? It's a bit mean. Any thoughts? Do you spot any thoughts?
I found it hard to think about my thoughts because I was listening to your voice.
Okay, good. It's the right answer.
Parts of me was getting frustrated. I don't know what I think because you keep talking.
Okay. That's a thought. That's a thought. Amazing, amazing. And again, I love that kind of idea that there's parts of us, these competing parts. The thought that says, oh, I really want to do this. And then the other thought that says, am I doing this right? So that's all normal, all good. We're going to do it one more time. Now you know what you've got coming. So just sit up in your chair. We're not trying to relax. So close your eyes if you're willing. Obviously, don't do this if you're driving. And we're just stopping. And we're stilling ourselves before God. And we're acknowledging that he is God and we are not. And then just take notice of a few breaths. Open your mouth a little bit so you don't trap your air. then just observe your mind. Is it busy or calm? If it's busy, what's grabbing your attention? And then observe your body. What are you feeling? What are you feeling physically? What are you feeling emotionally? And then we're going to move. Move anything. Whatever's going on inside, we can move. And then open your eyes, come to your senses, look, listen. What should you be doing in this moment? Listening to me or planning your dinner? So, we're not good at remembering to practice our skills. Good evidence. If you practice a stomp even twice a day, it will change your neurology at the same pace that the gym changes your body. So I'm told by people who are into resistance training that if I start resistance training today, in about 3 months, I will notice some difference in my body. And after about 6 months, other people will notice some difference in my body. And this is the same. So if you do a stomp, a couple of times even, but obviously more than that will be great, lots of times a day, after about 3 months, you will notice some level of difference, that you're a bit more present, a bit less on autopilot. And after 6 months, other people might notice some difference. One police officer told me that this technique saved a life, that he arrived at a very difficult situation. I'd never heard of the phrase death by cop, but apparently sometimes people in extreme distress trigger the police into harming them. And he said he arrived, he was really stressed, his inner world was going mad. He did a stomp and managed to get himself sufficiently present to look outside of himself, and they saved the man's life. So, we want to wake up. So the easiest way to remember to practice a stomp when you're getting good at it is to pair it with something. So we all do things all day that we can't help doing. So going to the toilet is a good one. I once had a very busy consultant. I did a lot of NHS training, and he said, I don't have time for this. So like in this massive auditorium, I was like, do you ever have a poo? And he was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, that's a great opportunity. Like, notice the feeling on your bottom, notice the smell, notice the plop, all of that. So, everyone's got time for this stuff, believe me. So if you pair it with something you do a lot, for me that's boiling the kettle, starting my ignition, just pair it with something you can't help doing when you start off. So put a sticker on your kettle or something to remind you when you first start. When I first started this, I decided I'd do it in the shower. So I put a shoe outside my shower door. So I'd go, oh, that's a bit weird. And then remember to do a stomp in the shower because there's lots of nice getting present opportunities with smells and stuff. So they're the kind of things that people often find helpful. We create habits in 3 weeks. So there never used to be a Costa Cafe in Storrington, and I never thought about Costa Coffee. So then it came. Then I started going before I went to work. Then I started not being able to leave the house without thinking of a Costa Coffee. Then I started getting really annoyed whenever it was closed for the day. And then after, a few weeks, when I was getting dressed, I'd start to think about my coffee. So even before I saw the triggers, that's what we do to ourselves. If we repeat something enough, and it only takes 3 weeks, our brains take over and give us an urge to do that thing without our consent. That sometimes works for sinful habits and unhelpful habits, but we can also use it for good habits. So practice the stomp for 3 weeks. If you live with other people that are having a go, remind them. I can send Jez the handout of the stomp so you can print it out and put it on your fridge, if you like, for a while. So there. So we're wanting to pay better attention. We're wanting to come off autopilot. We're wanting to come to our senses. So the secular version will be get present. And if you teach mindfulness properly, you'll be telling people how to see what their mind is full of, rather than to escape and detach. So kind of imagine it's like me interrupting your flow and going, Jez, what are you doing? Like you do to your children. Like I've told you to get your shoes on and you're playing on a game. So come to your senses, do what your father has asked you to do. You could see it like that. Does that make sense? So, yeah. So we want to do a stomp. So we're supposed to be finishing this session at 10 to, is it? Or 1 o'clock. Oh, amazing. Okay. This is my favorite tool, and I would argue that it's a tool that can be used in so many contexts. It can be used in your marriage. It can be used to plan forward, to look back at when you got caught out doing something you didn't want to be doing. It's what it says on the tin. So it's a lens. What does a lens do, guys? What's the purpose of a lens or a telescope? Pardon? Focus. So that's what it does. It focuses us in on behaviors that we wouldn't usually be paying attention to give us more insight. So I used to do this so much that Lyndon banned me from doing it in the public domain. He said it wasn't socially appropriate, and I'm not allowed to whip out a serviette and do it. But, you know, there's just no situation you can tell me about that a 4-part lens doesn't help. I don't do it in public, but I can do it on my hand now, so that's really good. Anyway, when you get good at this, you'll be able to do it in your head. So you should have a handout. And if you haven't got a pen, put your hand up, and Lyndon will give you one of our special police pens that are a nice colour. So, but you should have you can have one of those if you'd like anyway. If you want a new pen, put your hand up and he will give you one. I love a free pen. So you have one of these and it's got a way move. Don't get it muddled up with the towards move that's at the end of your pack. The pink one is my favourite. Right. Everyone got one of those handouts? If not, they're at the back. Right, okay. So, you've got a 4-part lens. We're going to talk you through how to use this, and Lyndon's going to do an example from his life in church, I believe. So, first of all, we're wanting to recognize you've got 4 parts. So the line across the middle is this differentiation, really. So below the line is stuff only you know about. So you and God. So it's stuff that's inside of you. Thoughts, feelings, memories, your inner world. Okay? So everything we'll be writing below the line is inner world stuff. Everything above the line is behavior you can see on a camera. Okay? So it'll all come clear in a minute. Don't panic too much. So when we're looking back, we start at the top left. My left and right is a bit off. So look at the diagram. So we're going to start in the top. Yeah, it is this top left, isn't it? Top left quadrant. It should have an arrow there, actually. And what we're going to think about in a minute, but Lyndon's going to talk you through an example so you can see it. I want you to think about a screw up. So something that you've done or said that you wished you hadn't. So we would call that an away move. Something, or like if you'd have watched that on a camera, Knowing me as a Christian, you'd have said, oh, that's Joe Johnson moving away from God's values, doing something that's sinful or at least unhelpful. Okay? Lyndon's going to talk you through an example, but we're going to start in this quadrant. So give us a little bit of context to your example.
Okay, so I've just been leading worship. So I did half an hour of leading worship, and I came down at the end of the service, off to get coffee, and I was intercepted by a person in the congregation who said to me, "You shouldn't give them notices, and you shouldn't give anything like the notices in the middle of the worship. It was, that should be up on the screen at the front of the church, and you mentioned something which was a notice in the middle of worship, and you shouldn't do that." So I said, "I was up there, I will do exactly what I want to do."
Amen.
That's my top left.
So what would we have seen you do then? What would your body language have been like and your tone of voice in that moment?
So my tone of voice was quite abrupt, and I would have been scowling and not very receptive to what was happening. I might have clutched my arms if I was, if I would have thought about it.
Yes.
I wouldn't have been smiling.
He has very thin lips when he's in a mood. So anyway, see if you can put in your top left your thing. So if I'd have watched you on a camera doing that thing you said or did that regret, what would I have seen on a camera? So remember that a camera can't see what's going on inside of you. So what would you have been seeing, doing, saying? Yeah, write it on your top left. So remember, these are skills, and for some people that will be really hard. So if your mind has gone blank, don't worry about it. Sometimes we have to ask our closest, dearest, and what am I seen doing and saying when in that context? Anyone willing to be super brave and give us their example, at least what it looked like on a camera? Oh, thank you. Oh dear. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. That's a really good example. I have a mother that I relate to that would do that kind of thing. So that's very brave. Thank you very much for sharing that. Anyone else brave enough to, Okay. Oh dear, life's difficult, isn't it? So like mother-daughters, it's not easy, is it? Okay, one more example. Anyone got something, Jazz?
When I expect Amy to read my mind, and she doesn't, what she sees from me is I sigh, clench my jaw, and I will talk in short, sharp sentences.
As if she is stupid.
She know what I want without me telling her.
Yes. Yes, yes. Lyndon has that same telepathy experience and expectation. So, yeah, okay, so you get the idea. So hopefully you've filled in your top left. What would we see on a camera when you're doing this away move? So, Lyndon, in the bottom left, so we go below it. So what's driving that? So Lyndon, when I saw you, I didn't see you, when you were standing in the kitchen with your arms folded, saying, I will do what I like, what thoughts, feelings, memories, and desires were coming up inside of you that we couldn't see?
Okay, so first of all, there was your challenging my authority as a church leader. So there was the first thought, and the feeling was, oh no, this is going to go bad. We're going to escalate this, and it will. I'm then going to have a confrontation. So that's the fear that was going on there. Also, the next fear was, I'm not capable of actually being up there and probably doing what you're saying, in as much as I'm not a person that can, that is quite fluent, if you like. When I'm in front of people in the church leading worship, I can't stick to a complete regime. So I will do what I can do, and I lead worship in a way that I can do it, not in a way that particularly I should be or could be. So I'm not that competent at it, but I do it because I can. So I'm feeling to myself, you're asking me something I can't do, and that is, there's a fear there that actually I'm not capable of doing it. I'm not able.
Okay, so you get the idea. So, and again, this might be really hard. If you've never paid any attention to your inner world, you might still be in the place where you think, I do stuff, but I have no idea. There's nothing going on inside of me to create that. So don't worry if it's a complete blank. These are skills you can practice. But if you have any idea of some of the thoughts, feelings, memories going on inside of you, what was coming up to promote that? A bit of a side note while you're doing that, Lyndon struggles much more with men doing that. So in my experience growing up, men were safe, women were not safe. So if you want to make me feel very orange, put me in a group of women my age who are very well turned out. He doesn't struggle with that at all. So if it was a woman who'd come up and said that wouldn't have triggered his fear landmine that his dad set there by being so aggressive. So, it's that stuff as well. So if you start to notice your away moves, you'll begin to see some patterns around different things that happen. So it's just kind of worth pondering that in those contexts. And a couple of people have talked about a mother and a daughter. So, we're different versions, aren't we? We're different versions. We're not the same. Context is really important. And again, getting to know. So once you start to pay attention to your inner life, I've got one friend, and I'm just so orange when I'm with her. There's just something about her. And often it's people that are very anxious themselves. So our inner lives leak, and God has designed us for his glory to co-regulate. So I can change your physiology by being in the room with you. So if I come into a room and somebody's really distressed and I feel pretty calm and present, I can bring their physiology right down and they will begin to feel calm. But also if you're feeling really calm and I come in frenetic and start speaking really fast and escalating and being really difficult, I can make your physiology start to feel anxious. If you pay attention, you'll start to see that's true. Because sometimes you'll have an experience of like, I just don't like that person. I don't know what it is. You know, we just meet somebody and like, oh, something about you that I just don't like. And somebody in the audience kindly said to me, like, oh, you really reminded me of the person that I became a Christian through. And it's like, oh, there's a good association. So I used to speak at conferences a lot, and there was a young woman there with a northern accent, and we kind of agreed that we had a little bit of a mutual crush on each other. And I realized for her it was a young woman that I'd known in my 20s who was from Yorkshire, and she said embarrassingly, like, oh, you really remind me of my mum. And it's like, so, but you know, that's what's happening for good and evil. Like, our minds and bodies are remembering associations, actually, and often we will have like, oh, I'm really drawn to you, but I'm really repelled by you. And that's, you know, it's just worth kind of noting that. So anyone willing to, probably somebody different, talk about a thought that they've identified as underpinning their away move? So you don't have to tell me the context, just tell me the thought, I can't bear you, or, oh yeah. Okay, great, thank you. This is not important enough. Anyone else got a thought, Freya? Oh yes, me too. So again, remembering that when we have adrenaline, so a situation that's making us feel uncomfortable, what our mind does is it's like, you're the enemy. To keep me safe, my mind says you're the enemy, even when it's him. So it's like, you know, this is personal, they're out to get me, I need to protect myself, you're attacking me. That's a really common thought. You put your hand up. Yep. Who else has versions of that? Anyone in this room who has the not good enough thought quite a lot? Ooh, look at that. The others just haven't noticed it yet. So I've trained thousands of people, and I always ask that question, who's got a version of the not good enough feeling inside of them? And no one has not put their hand up. So I did work in Broadmoor for a while, and I'm sure there's people in there. But anyway, I think it's part of being human. So yeah, for sure. Thank you. Anyone willing to acknowledge a feeling? Again, you don't have to tell me the context. What feelings underpinned your away move? Rage, anger. Yep, great. Unsafe. Yep. Restless. Yep. Confused. Loneliness. Amazing, you're good at this. So, frustrated, it's a good one. Yep. Frustration, irritation, anger. Cool, okay. So, it's nearly lunchtime. We're going over to the right side in all ways. So, right side of your grid. Imagine that thing, and you get another go at it. So Lyndon gets another Sunday to go into church and ponder this, to get present before he does that. So what fruits of the Spirit do you want to show in that context when Paul stomps up to you? Everyone's called Paul. I'm not breaking confidentiality. He's not at our church anymore. And I forgot to mention in the context of your worship leading that we're not at all bitter that the best worship leader we've ever had came home to Seaford and ended up in your church. So, anyway, yeah.
Okay, so I would like to have been open and approachable. I'd like to have listened. I'd like to have shown my best version in an understanding and a calm way.
Cool, nice. Who and what was important in that context when you ponder it present? So in that context, what was actually important?
The other person was the important person.
Okay, yeah. Kind
Not
of.
not me.
No, and something I guess about the bride of Christ and building unity and some of that stuff as well. So see if you can put in your bottom right. So what and who is actually important here? What's it all about? Because we hurt where we care. So our bottom two are related. You won't have painful thoughts and feelings about whether to have chicken or vegetarian for lunch or some such other pointless decisions. So if there's pain, if there's difficult thoughts and feelings, there's something in here that you care about and matters deeply. So for Lyndon, that would have been about worshipping well, leading worship, facilitating relationship with God and church, and being a good church leader, because otherwise it wouldn't have triggered difficult thoughts and feelings. So just kind of, as you put in there, what's fruits of the Spirit, what of God's values do you want to show, or what values do you want to show in that context your second time? Just think about that. I hurt where I care. So there's something important in this. So see if you can identify that. What's important and what values do you want to show, or do you wish you'd shown? Anyone willing to answer the question, who and what was important? Again, you don't have to tell me anything about it. Oh, sorry. Okay, so something about honouring the relationship, marriage, yeah. Anyone else? What was important? Why did this stir trouble? I guess there's some daughter-mother relationship or some family relationships somewhere in there, isn't there, in those two examples? One more example. What was important? Why did this even matter? Okay, so something about relationship, I guess, in there is important. So anyone willing to say, what values did you actually want to show? If you had that time again, what values would you have wanted to show? Love, great. Self-control, patience, nice, yeah. So, and this is your final one. If you remembered those values, if you stayed in step with the Spirit, what would we then have seen on a camera in your behaviour? Lyndon, what would we have seen then?
So I think, to sum up my bottom left a little bit more, the kindness and self-control would probably really what I would be trying to show. So that would include, on a camera, I would be seen to be listening, I would seem to be being open, and I would be seen to be being understanding. And even though my decision for what the outcome would be exactly the same, it would have been a completely different interaction.
Nice. So see if you can capture what would have been seen on a camera if you'd have stayed in step with what God wanted. Or if you're not a Christian here today, what values would you have wanted to show, and what would that have looked like on a camera if you'd have managed to show them? And again, anyone willing to give us a couple of sentences from that? Yeah. Okay, nice, thank you. Anyone else? Nice. Yeah, truth in love. Yeah, how hard that is. Thank you. That's amazing. So then look at all your four. So remember, you're the only person who has access to all four. Other people can see the camera behaviours, but only you know what's going on. So have a look at it. Look at your own four. And just look at it with kindness. The kindness of the Father, who isn't got his arms folded and isn't saying, what kind of ridiculous human are you? He's looking at us with compassion, going, it's really hard for you, isn't it? Like we look at our children. We don't want them to screw up. So have a look at all your 4 and see if you can just get any insights. What comes to mind? Notice any thoughts or feelings. What do you get from looking at all 4? Some reflection, okay. Anything else? What's it like to look at all 4? Oh, yes. Yeah. 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 That's a good point, I think, knowing ourselves to the point. I mean, tiredness and hunger is a big thing for me, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah, we're such rebellious, messy children deep in our hearts, aren't we? I think it's very interesting. The more you ponder this, how many times in your bottom left you write, "It's not fair." That's one of my big lenses. It's not fair. And I just think, oh my goodness, you haven't matured since you were 2. It's like, it is not fair. What about me? All of those sorts of things it comes back to, isn't it? And then we look at our Bibles and we're like, God was right, wasn't he? And it's like, but can you see how, if you sort of color code it like that, you've got on one side, what's it like being on autopilot, driven by the flesh? I'm not paying good attention to my inner world, and I'm shooting from it like a zombie, just, expelling myself, and then actually coming back, noticing what God wants, being more in connection with the Spirit and behaving out of that. And actually, I would encourage you, we don't have time today to do many of these, but just practice using that as a tool. Again, Jez has got the PDF, they're all mine, just photocopy it at will, take a handful. And the more you do it, after a while, I can do that now. I can be driving along, moving away from a training, and I know exactly all my 4-part lenses. So you're never going to, I always say in a secular context, we're not going to make ourselves into Snow White. And in a Christian context, we're not going to be sanctified till we get to heaven. But actually, the more you get to know yourself and the way that your inner world expels itself. And also, I've done marriage work with people, and we've simply got my 4-part lens over his 4-part lens and gone, oh, like Jez is saying, his camera behavior is a big sigh and for goodness sake, don't you know that? And then poor Amy's probably like, why is he always like this? Why is he so irritated? And you put those 2 things together and you're like, oh, kind of now I can see in your bottom left, it's like we really understand what's going on here. And often that's all you have to do in a couples session. So, on autopilot, these well-rehearsed, well-trodden paths just get played out so comfortably. So we're going to do lunch. I'm only 5 minutes over, so I've gained back 5 minutes for you. I'm just wondering, given we can't practice this out of the room and come back, can you pay full attention for at least a few minutes in lunch? So notice the first few mouthfuls of your food. Notice something about the person you're with that you haven't noticed for a while, even if you know them well. Anyone brave enough not to look at their phone and to notice the discomfort that comes up inside of you as you resist that urge?